Hey guys, welcome to your favorite late night sessions. We are joined today by a favorite who's been here before. We're joined today by Anna, and some of you might remember her from the Phoenix episode that we did, I think, almost 4 years ago. And I'm so glad and excited and honored to have her again here to give us an update on her story. And for some of you who may not know what her story is, she's going to give us a bite size uh, into what was going on at that time and what her story is about. And also, give us an update on how she's been and everything that's been happening in these past 3, 4 years. Anna, welcome.
Thank you so much, Nkosi. I'm so happy to be back. And I think our podcast was one of the first times I told my story about gender based violence. So I think it's
Yeah,
very full circle to be here today.
yeah. We're also super happy to have you back, and I'm glad to also see that you're doing so well, and that we are honored and blessed to have this conversation again and just catch up and find out how you've been.
Absolutely. So, maybe for those who haven't met me before, my name is Anna, and I was born and raised in South Africa. And I live in Cape Town now. And in October 2020, so 4 years ago, I became a survivor of intimate partner violence when an ex boyfriend assaulted me out of the blue one night. And during that assault, I was strangled, beaten, and very brutally assaulted. And I managed to escape the next day and I pressed charges. And as of 1 month ago, so 4 years on, he was found guilty in criminal court on 2 counts of assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm and was sentenced to 4 years direct imprisonment with the possibility of early parole based on correctional supervision if he
Mm.
is if he acts in a way that allows for early release. And since then, I also obtained a permanent protection order against him as well. So, the journey has been a long one of many years, but certainly a worthwhile one of getting justice and, really getting, I think, the outcome that we hope for in cases like this where abusers are held accountable.
Mm. Yeah. And it's been 4 years. Like, that is a
Yeah.
long time, and I would like to commend you for hanging on this long till you got justice, because I think the average person would have just given up and felt like they're not getting anywhere with their case. But I'd
Mm.
like to know what gave you that hope to just keep hanging on and keep fighting, and what has that process been like for you over these past 4 years?
Yeah, I think, it's you go into it and you don't really know what you're stepping into. So
Mm,
you are naive as to how difficult the process of getting justice is going to be. And, you're blissfully unaware, if I'm honest, of how
yeah,
difficult it will. And once you're on the journey, you're quite committed to the outcome that is driving you forward. So you want to get the guilty verdict and you want to get that permanent protection order, or restraining order is another term for it. You want
yeah,
to get the outcomes because you know that you'll get, the protection that you seek, and you'll get some sort of empowerment by getting justice. And I think that that's really the drive that kept me going on the hard days. And
mm,
so, something I haven't really spoken about it in the past yet, as I was kind of waiting for the case to be over, is that while I was pursuing these things, there were a few negative things that actually came up. That actually added fuel to my fire. So my abuser was retaliating a lot towards me, using the civil and criminal process against
mm,
me as the victim, trying to do the right thing. He started retaliating for me speaking up. And at every point, he was trying to put me down, and I would just refuse to have that occur. So that also kept me quite inspired because I felt really strongly that I needed to see it through for those reasons, so that these things couldn't be used against me anymore.
yeah. I guess in most cases, the abusers sometimes have so much power that they, when they use these legalities and the power that they have to press against you when you're trying to get justice, that's what
Mm.
also drives other people to silence, because they don't have the power that they then have, or the reach that they then have to then go against you when you're trying to get your justice.
Exactly. I mean, it's exhausting. You're trying to just do your criminal case and your own civil case to get your protection order, which, the one took 2 years, the other took 4 years. So you can
Mm,
imagine how exhausting that is on top of your day to day life and work and relationships. But then on top of that, you start getting all of these retaliations against you.
yeah.
And I'll give insights into like what that looked like. So I think obviously, as I pressed my charges, he was arrested, released on bail. And then as I spoke up on social media, he tried to get a protection order against me for speaking up. So he tried to
Yeah, because I
silence.
remember back then you couldn't really get into details because
Yeah,
there were so
exactly.
many legal holes that you could have fallen into.
Exactly. So every time I would speak up about my story on social media, I would be hit with a new case. And while these things are all fightable, like you can fight them off and you can prove it in court, but it's money, it's time, it's emotional distress. And these are large
Mm,
considerations that you have to be open to dealing with if you want to speak up. So, for me, a few of the things that happened was obviously he tried to get the protection order. We had to go to court for about a year and a half to prove why he shouldn't get a protection order against me. So that he lost it. Then he tried to charge me with criminal injuria, and criminal injuria is basically intentionally impairing the dignity or privacy of another person.
yeah.
So the belief was that, or the accusation against me was that I was calling someone an abuser who wasn't an abuser, which we all
That
know
you're
wasn't
basically
true.
going on a smear campaign.
Exactly. So, that's one of them. And another type of legal case that can be tried is defamation of character. And in South Africa, it's a civil case and it's a civil wrong that occurs when a person communicates false and damaging statements about another person, either in writing or verbally. So it's like slandering someone's name,
Mm,
basically. And, that obviously wasn't true either, because when I was saying this person is an abuser and I am a survivor, I was telling the truth. And the
yeah.
legal system was being used to attempt to intimidate me and to actually try silence me. And of course, I fought off every single one, and none of them were successful. But it's a cost, it's a price you're going to have to pay if your abuser chooses to retaliate when you tell your story, and if they are named publicly. These are the considerations that might occur.
Yeah. That is so true. And I mean, it's at this very sensitive stage where it's a back and forth, and there's also a lot of manipulation for you to just not talk about it and just bury your story. But I'd love
Mm.
to know, or I'd like you to share with our listeners how you managed to get out and stay out of that whole relationship and communication with him and all that abuse.
So I think, day one of escaping the assault, I was held against my will, like I said, for a few hours. And
Mm,
I convinced my abuser that I would stay with him and that I was just going to take a walk down to the shops. So I managed to leave the house after eventually the second assault in the
mm,
morning. And once I got out, I obviously immediately went to a friend and I went to get help. I knew that I'd been in a life or death situation. And because I'd almost died, with the strangulation that I was going through, every molecule in my body knew that I did not want anything to do with this individual. And
yeah.
that from a romantic perspective, from the moment the first hit occurred, I realized the severity of the situation and that I would never put myself in the situation again. So I think it's a bit of a unique feeling. I know that most women try to leave a few times and don't. For me, I had a bit
Mm,
of a experience, I think, in sense initially. It felt like my human rights had been violated. This wasn't the safe relationship that I had intended to be in it at all. So for me, it was very easy to just get out. And I think what also comes into play is obviously coming from a place of privilege where you have options, you have a
Yeah.
safe space. You've got family support, you have resources. So I think all of those things obviously created a confidence in me that I could also stay out, and I could stay
Mm.
safe, stay out. And again, that's privilege, right? And I think that was for me how I managed to very clearly say to myself, never again.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I know, like, despite what you went through, and despite you saying when all this started happening, you realized that this was no longer the safe space that I thought it would be. But the reality is that it's harder to just switch off the feelings and the thoughts and everything that would then go on in your head afterwards. How was that whole phase when you were now trying to get justice and seeing this person in court and seeing how
Mm.
they were retaliating to you trying to get justice to what they did to you? Was there any remorse or on his part? And like, what was the turmoil of emotions on both ends?
Mm. I think staying out, like I said, wasn't the hard part. It was the healing and then getting justice that
Mm,
was. I remember being so shocked that I had ended up in this situation, because you think of yourself as someone who's intelligent and, has a good read on people,
yeah,
has never situation like that before. In South Africa, you're more concerned about people breaking in. I didn't believe I'd need to be concerned about people like that I had let into my home myself. So
yeah,
I think for me, the shock initially and unraveling the lies I had been told. So initially, I found out that there'd been a string of girls before me, all who were in the middle of legal disputes with him.
mm,
And shocked that the person portrayed to me was not the person that I had known. So I knew a version, I knew a mask of the person that
yeah,
actually for me. So I think it was just the shock really of being lied to, because I'm such an honest person. It was like really difficult to understand how on earth I missed the biggest red flag of all of these lies. And you kind of try to beat yourself up a little bit, like, gosh, how is I so silly? But I think, when we're innately good people, we don't look for the bad in others. And so I
mm,
think part for me was just like a huge shock, really. And I
yeah,
think, you know, I remember when I first spoke up about my story, I think being believed was super important. So I had like community support where everyone, supported me and said, we believe that you're a survivor. We stand with you and we're going to support you however you need us for your legal, for your healing. So I think
yeah,
that's also experience, because it starts to be you're not just on your own going through this thing. You have, like, when you have a bad day, you have like all these people around you, your loved ones, really just holding you up on the days that are hard. That
mm,
really, I think, a positive healing journey when I first began.
yeah.
Mm.
And physically, you don't have any long-term problems that you now had to deal with from the
Well,
attack.
yeah. So I'd say the one thing is that during the assault, my abuser head butted my nose, which actually
Mm,
broke. So my breathing head, and that really made me fixable with surgery. And I'm seeing how it goes. I wanted to get through the case well before kind of adding that to the mix, but it's something I can consider so that I have my breathing back to 100%, because at the moment it's probably around 60% through my nose. And that's
mm,
a bit difficult thing to deal with as well, because physically my nose did change a bit as well, and I had scars on my lip and on my nose. And at first that was pretty much all I could see on my face, was
yeah,
that I looked different and that I was changed. And I think over time, as I, went through the healing journey, I started to see them as like my battle scars.
yeah,
And it's something I'm ashamed of. And I think that was important. And when you find the inner strength inside, those things matter less and less. And that
Mm.
was a very empowering moment for me as well. You mentioned, you said about having to see your abuser in court all the time. So, like,
Yeah, how was that?
yeah, let's just unpack that. So, you obviously go through this very traumatic thing. You then see them getting arrested at the police station, which
Yeah,
is like reality. Then the next time you see them is in your criminal case in like court, or in civil court, where they are opposing you getting a protection order against them, and you literally sit 2 meters away from this person. And my approach, and I guess what I would advise anyone, is you pretend the person doesn't exist. You don't give them any power, because they've lost their power over you. You
yeah,
are not back
yeah,
the power. You're in the driver's seat. They are the ones where all the lies have unraveled. The truth is out there. It's just a matter of time. So I think for me, that really did help, even though it was very stressful at first. I would feel like very like emotional when I would go there, even though it wouldn't appear so on the outside. But
yeah,
your just feel your adrenaline like pumping through your veins, and when you're forced to be that close to a person who is just really not someone you'd ever want to be in the same room with ever again.
yeah,
And as time passed, it became easier and easier, and I think that's also just a testament to building strength and becoming more resilient to these things as time passed.
yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Um, Today marks the second day of the 16 Days of Activism, which is basically a yearly campaign by the United Nations to stand against GBV. So, what does this campaign mean to you this year? And is it any different to its importance to you? Is it any different? Is it any different to how it was 4 years ago, 2 years ago, and today?
I definitely feel that it changes every year, and
Mm-hmm.
potentially like the meaning may change based on where you are in your journey as a
Yeah.
survivor or supporter, or how it's impacted you that year, etc. So I think I've always wondered, how would my story end? Because I think that the conviction rates of GBV are like under 10%, if not
Yeah.
2%. So they're very, very, very low. And obviously, reporting is also very low. So these numbers are all a bit of a thumbsuck, even when they are reported on. But
Yeah.
basically, most people never get justice in the way that I have. And I never really knew before every other, days in this campaign how my story was going to end, and if it was going to be justice has been served and like it was worth the journey of the legal system, or if it would be a frustrating ending where it's another.
Mm.
So I think for me, every year, as I've evolved as a survivor and as my story has continued being written, I think it takes a new meaning. And I think, at the end of this year now, to have a guilty verdict and realizing how rare it is to get, so my activism energy is now no longer about my journey, but I can actually invest my time into new initiatives. And I think it's a very exciting thing to not have to pour so much energy into my case and now have that extra energy in order to give back in different ways. So for me this year, the kind of initiative conversations I'm trying to have are really about, adding new dimension to the GBV conversation. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
often a very hard topic and it's upsetting, and people turn a blind eye or skip the story if it's something that's going to be just really hectic to listen to and difficult. It might bring up things for people that they also don't want to deal with. So I'm trying to bring a different lens of how we speak about based violence and just kind of be less serious about it, because I think if we can speak about these things in a more comfortable way, more conversations will be, more change can occur, and awareness and things. So, that really is the energy I think I have this year, which I would say is quite different to the previous year.
Yeah. Speaking about people turning a blind eye, you and I were having a chat earlier on when you were just sharing statistics with me, especially on the upcoming Chris Brown concert and the petition that's going on to not have the concert. Do you want to share on your research on that and what you think could be or should be done, just to be a bit more sensitive to people who have been survivors or experience GBV or are fighting for the cause of GBV?
Yes, exactly. So I think we know that GBV in South Africa, it's the capital of all of these, and it's the biggest area where GBV is an issue in the world. So number
Mm-hmm.
one, a priority of our government to really support survivors and to stand against perpetrators. So when we are looking at this topic of the show coming up, it's actually on my birthday, believe it or not, on the
Oh
14th of
no.
December, and he's been invited here essentially and approved by the government to host this concert. And his background is that if he was found guilty, so he is a known abuser. That's factual. And South Africa still proved that he can perform his concert. There've been other countries like Australia where they have denied visa application. So to me, when I look at us being the GBV capital of the world, and the fact that he is a celebrity and he's very well known, he's waving a flag, to say GBV is okay. And the most worrying part of this is that Women for Change, which are an organization for GBV survivors and activism in South Africa, one of our best, and they created a petition to say, stop Chris Brown from performing in South Africa. And this petition gained over 50,000 signatures in a few days and is now being submitted actually to the government. And I wish that our government and those who have allowed this to occur would take a firmer stance, because it's no wonder that gender-based violence is such an issue in this country when that is being allowed and enabled and celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why there's so many sisters, and I think it's about holding one another accountable. And if you do your crime, you should do your time, but you also then need to act differently if you're going to
Yeah.
be integrated into society. And you need to show that GBV is wrong. And without those kind of things being met, to me, I think it's in very bad taste. And I really hope that the government does consider the petition. And, especially after 16 days of activism, it feels like a
Yeah.
big slap to survivors. And really, I think it's going to encourage violence, if anything. If a celebrity is allowing it, I think it's going to create the wrong impression and influence as we go into December.
Yeah. What do you believe needs to be done to actually end GBV, or how can we make a difference? I mean, on this case, also with the concert, do you think maybe it would help if fellow celebrities in the South African industry also stood up and took a stance and blatantly showed which side they stand on when it comes to such topics?
So true. I think, when it comes to celebrities, everyone has a bit of a hidden agenda when it comes to who's paying whose bills, who is supported by which agency,
Oh,
um, you
yeah.
know, intricacies that go on behind closed doors, which I'm empathetic for, because standing up means going against the grain and losing certain jobs of people who might be supporting this concert, so it could have real ramifications
Yeah.
on these speaking up. But at the same time, as I've shown, I think when something is hard, it doesn't mean we shouldn't go that path. So I think it would be very beneficial. And I think always when there's social media support, things just change. It is really a catalyst for change. And it's
Mm.
the power of storytelling, it's the power of community, it's the power of activism that comes together. And I think that's really where a difference could have been made. And it is a pity, like I say, it's a glaring flaw that we have add more of that, standing in solidarity against this. I know there are some celebrities that are very involved and they do, share a lot about GBV activism, but it is
Mhm.
odd. Particular one has somehow flown under the radar, and I don't think that that's by accident.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and if someone came to you today who had just experienced assault or is in the process of trying to get justice or in the process of trying to leave an abuser, what advice would you have for them?
I think number one is always, what's happening to you, what's happening to someone else, is getting to safety. So depending on the situation that person is in currently, it's like, what is your plan to either get to safety? Is there someone else you can stay with? Do you have the option, go apply for a protection order, which everyone can do? You don't need legal representation to do it. And,
Mm.
what steps that they take to maybe get back on their feet. So I think for me, I think the power needs to come from within, and it starts with that survivor having the right environment and support there, just able to live life in a safe way, because it's of course very stressful and dangerous for some survivors who are going through it. The second thing that I would say is that depending on the country you live in South Africa, we've got something called the J88 form, which is
Mhm.
when you go to a clinic or a hospital. Basically you get a form that the doctor will fill in documenting your injuries. So they circle basically around your body where the injuries are, and they sign the document at the bottom saying that these injuries are real. They've seen you as the patient in person, and these are valid injuries. And that form can be used in protection order case, or it can be used in criminal. So these documents are very helpful. And the beauty of a J88 or something to that effect in your country, that it's something that you can have if you don't want to open a case immediately, or you just want to basically get this, you just want to heal for a little bit, you're uncertain of your next move, you need to still get safety. By having that document, you can open a case over, the next few months as
Yeah.
well. So
Hmm.
preferred to do it, you would know, as a nurse, but it's preferred to do it to do your case possible. Of course, I'm motivated that all the time, but
Hmm.
some time to come to come to terms with what's occurred, and also decide if they want to go down that path, because it's not for everyone. And so that piece of evidence is very important, and I think it's part of the reason I got the outcome I did, and any other that might exist. So you might think of things like WhatsApp chats, photographs, statements, friends, etc. The fresher the information is, the better it can be documented and saved. So if you can get that information together, either as a survivor or as a friend who's supporting that survivor, that'll be very beneficial either for now or in the future. And then
Mm.
I think my advice would be around just protecting your energy. So I think a lot of these cases, I've mentioned how stressful it is, and the unforeseen cases you might get in retaliation, as well as just the trauma of going through your own cases and healing. So when you're going through all of those different things, you've got to protect your energy, which means, be really mindful of the projects you take on, the work that you do, the friendships you have, the, relationships you take on. All of those things are going to impact your well being. And you need to make sure that you're saving room to have extra gas in the tank, because it's going to be a hard journey, and you want to be able to really focus on your healing. And if you can do that, there's really light at the end of the tunnel. Like I think I'm a testament to doing this process. But yeah, protect your energy, because you're going to need that extra energy to get through it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Anna. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of people that are appreciating the advice that you just gave out, and it's going to
Mm.
go a long way in helping them on their journey. Is there anything that you want us to look out for, that you're working on towards this cause, that you want us to support, that you want us to back?
Thank you. Yeah, I think, there's a few things I'm doing for 16 Days of Activism. I'm going to be doing a podcast, which I'll share on my Instagram
Mm-hmm.
stories, October Health, on, how to tell your story as a survivor and how to do it safely and mindfully, so that if you are not name your abuser, for example, you have some tools on how to do that and healing through storytelling. And I think that's going to be an exciting topic to chat about. And I'm also going to be sharing a checklist on social media regarding what you can do if you ever are in a GBV situation. So kind of the things we just spoke through, just something that's a little bit more concrete for people to refer to if they ever need it. And I think just I really want to encourage people to see GBV. It is something that is a pandemic. It's something that is a tough topic and it's heavy. But just to see it more as empowering women in their rights and to allow women to live the life that they deserve. So it's not always needing to be this heavy, difficult topic. Let's be part of the change, part of the positivity. It is a hard topic to talk about, but let's find those pockets of joy during 16 days to, come at this with a good energy, a renewed energy as well. And let's keep the conversation fresh and relevant. And let's keep supporting women who are going through these situations, believing them, and having conversations and being open to learning about things. Because if we can do that, we are actually the change that we are hoping to see, and we don't need to rely on others to be that change for us.
Yeah. No, and heavy on keeping the conversation fresh, hey? Not just having it over the 16 days of activism, but like over the whole year. Like, let's make it a constant conversation.
Exactly, exactly. And I think for me, some of the projects that I'm excited to now get into, because I've got the extra like time, because I don't have to be focusing on my case anymore, which obviously
Mm,
took hours every month, missing days of work and all of things, are really focusing on potentially the education system, because I believe that we can start with younger men, helping them to understand what violence is, what's okay, what's not okay, and also educating women on what to look out for, what are red flags. And I think GBV is really hard to cure once it is occurring. So if we
yeah.
can start at an earlier age, I feel a lot of energy that we could really improve what's happening in system, and then also the civil and criminal justice system. I think we spoke about a really big flaw, which is that abusers can use the system against you when you are
Yeah.
the civil. And to me, there's too many loopholes there. So I think that there are changes that we can make that'll make these roads easier for others, but also lessen the GBV incidents in the future. And be looking forward to joining more projects that kind of celebrate those elements that I really believe in.
Yeah. I really hope these conversations that we're having reach the right ears and having like real conversations that will bring real change. I really hope that's what this is going to bring about. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Um, and coming back to share the update of your story. It really cannot be easy, but I realize that for you, sharing your story and keeping us updated and, letting us in at every turn has also been a big part of your healing and also been a big part in you contributing to stopping this or educating people on how to get out, how to get help. And I really appreciate that about you. And I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of everyone.
Thank you so much, and for appreciating my story. I think, as you say, healing through storytelling has probably been one of my unique contributions to the movement. And I think it's been an interesting lens for people to experience what it is like to seek justice. But at least we had a happy ending, in the sense
Yeah.
that we this painful incident into power, into knowledge, into education, into awareness. And I really encourage anybody out there, who's having a hard time on their own journey, or supporting someone else, is to just find the positive in it, because it obviously is so, so, so difficult. But there is a silver lining in how women are, how we can stand up for one another and there is light at the end of the tunnel to really live a great life. And if you are a
Yeah,
survivor, you're very proud of that title, of what you've lived through and the woman that you will become.
true. Thank you so much, Anna. I will say this again, you're a phoenix. And I really appreciate you and I wish you all the best going forward. And I hope we're going to have another conversation soon on the work that you've started. And
Yes,
hopefully by
absolutely.
then we'll be talking about the progress and the lives that you've touched along the way.
Yes, definitely. We'll definitely chat about my new startup in a couple of months' time, and I look
Yeah,
forward to that journey as well. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And of course,
you're welcome.